Step away from the table and show me your ID now.
Officer, excuse me. I'm Commander Elijah Conquo, United States Navy. This is my official dress uniform.
I don't care who you claim to be. Stand up now.
I've committed no crime. I'm requesting your badge number.
You don't get to make demands. You're being detained.
Then you're about to create a very serious problem, officer.
But before he was Commander Okonkwo, he was just Elijah, a thin, quiet kid growing up poor in rural Georgia, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. Lillian Okonkwo spent 34 years as a school teacher, spending her days educating other people's children and her nights making sure her own son had opportunities she never did. She gave up vacations, music, new clothes, and her own comfort, pouring everything she had into Elijah's future. And when he earned his commission and pinned on his seal trident, she cried for 3 straight hours. Now Lillian was about to turn 70, and Elijah wanted to give her something she had never experienced. Dinner at Magnolia House, the fine dining restaurant she had admired in magazines for years but never thought she would step inside. This evening was his gift to her, a tribute to the woman who made his life possible. Magnolia House stood at the corner of Broad and Lafayette in Kensington, Virginia, a historic fine dining restaurant that had served the city's wealthiest families for more than 40 years. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, soft piano music floating through a dining room designed to reflect old Southern wealth. The customers were mostly wealthy and almost entirely white. The kind of place where reservations were booked weeks ahead and the dress code was strictly enforced. The restaurant was equipped with an advanced security system, 14 high-definition cameras covering the dining room, bar, entrance, kitchen, and parking lot. Installed 2 years earlier after a break-in, the system recorded nonstop, capturing every table, every interaction, and every second in sharp detail. Commander Okonkwo and his mother were seated at a window table at 6:45 p.m., evening sunlight passing through sheer curtains. He was dressed in full navy dress whites, his medals shining beneath the chandeliers, the silver star and purple heart catching the warm light every time he shifted in his chair. Lillian sat across from him in the dress she had bought just for this night, a deep blue gown she had chosen 3 weeks earlier, her eyes wide as she slowly read the leather-bound menu. Their server, a young woman named Carolyn Voss, would later testify under oath that Commander Okonkwo and his mother were the most polite and respectful guests she had served in her 4 years at Magnolia House. They said please and thank you for everything, Voss told the jury. He pulled out his mother's chair. He asked me how my day was going. They were wonderful people. They were just happy to be there together. The call came in at 7:12 p.m., anonymous complaint. Suspicious armed black male inside Magnolia House, possibly wearing a stolen military uniform. No details. No proof, just vague claims that should have been carefully checked before anyone took action. But Hurricks did not wait. He grabbed his partner, Officer Tara Linden, and headed straight to the restaurant. Both officers turned on their body cameras as they stepped out of the patrol car at 7:31 p.m. Hurricks pushed through the front doors, his camera recording the elegant dining room, dozens of guests enjoying their meals and quiet conversations. He did not stop at the hostess stand. He did not ask for the manager. His body camera showed him walking past every white customer in the room, heading directly toward the only black man inside. "I need to see your identification," Hendricks said loudly, his voice carrying across nearby tables. "We received a report about someone wearing a stolen military uniform." Okonkwo's jaw tightened, but years of military discipline held him steady. "Officer, I am Commander Elijah Okonkwo, United States Navy. This is my official dress uniform." He slowly reached into his jacket and pulled out his active duty military ID and Department of Defense credentials, holding them up under the chandelier light. The photo, the name, the rank, and the duty seal were all clearly visible on both body cameras and on 9 different security camera angles. Hurricks barely looked at them. His camera recorded his eyes shifting away almost instantly. "These could be fake," he said. "Anyone can buy a costume online." Lillian's eyes filled with tears. Linden shifted uneasily, her camera shaking slightly. She could clearly see the silver star and purple heart on Okonkwo's chest, medals no costume shop could ever recreate. But she said nothing. "Officer, I want your badge number and I want to speak with your supervisor," Okonkwo said calmly. Hendricks' face turned red. A stop playing games, soldier. Walk out or I'll help you out. Your choice. What happened next was captured from every possible angle. 2 body cameras, 9 security cameras, and 12 restaurant guests who pulled out their phones the moment Hendricks raised his voice. Okonkwo remained seated, his hands flat on the table. Clear, intentional non-aggression visible on every camera in the room. Officer, I'm not music leaving. I haven't committed a crime, Hendricks snapped. His body camera jerked forward as he grabbed Okonkwo by the arm and tried to yank him out of the chair. Okonkwo instinctively braced himself, his body stiffening against the force, a reflex built into him after 2 decades of combat training. Lyndon's camera clearly showed his hands still flat on the table. He's resisting, Rickshek shouted into his radio. I need backup at Magnolia House. He didn't wait. He grabbed Okonkwo with both hands and slammed him face first onto the table. Plates shattered. Glasses exploded. A decorated war hero's face smashed into the same surface where moments earlier he had been celebrating his mother's 70th birthday. Lillian screamed. The sound echoed through every microphone in the room. Atrix cuffed Okonkwo with such force that the metal cut into his wrists, drawing blood. His music dress uniform ripped at the shoulder. His medals were torn from his chest. The silver star and purple heart scattered across the hardwood floor. Then the security cameras captured an image that would soon play on every major news channel in the country. As Hendricks dragged Okonkwo toward the exit, he stepped directly on the fallen silver star, the medal awarded for rescuing wounded Marines under enemy fire, crushing it beneath his boot. A symbol of sacrifice destroyed by an officer who never bothered to properly check a military ID. Behind them, Lillian collapsed into the booth, clutching her chest. A cardiac episode. An ambulance was called for her as her son was dragged out in handcuffs, his torn uniform stained with food and blood, his medals left scattered across the floor of the restaurant where he had come to give his mother the birthday she deserved. Okonkwo was taken to the Kensington Police Department and placed into a holding cell at 8:14 p.m. He would remain there for the next 11 hours. Hendricks charged him with 4 crimes. Resisting arrest, assault on a police officer, trespassing music, and stolen valor. Every charge was fabricated. So, every charge directly contradicted by the body camera footage already saved on department servers. Okonkwo asked for his phone call immediately. He was denied. He asked again at 9:00 p.m. Denied. Again at 10:00 p.m. Denied. Denied. 4 hours passed before he was finally allowed to contact anyone. A clear violation of his constitutional rights, all documented by the holding cell surveillance cameras that recorded continuously in high definition. But the cameras captured something even worse. During booking, Creeks stood outside the holding cell with 2 other officers, clearly visible on camera, mocking Okonkwo's torn uniform. These people think they can put on a costume and sit wherever they want, he said, laughing. The audio captured every word. The other officers laughed along with him. Meanwhile, 6 miles away, Lillian Okonkwo lay alone in a hospital bed at Kensington Memorial, frightened and confused. The cardiac episode had been triggered. The cardiac episode, triggered by watching her son's violent arrest, was diagnosed as an acute heart event that required constant monitoring and medication. Lillian repeatedly asked about her son. No one had answers. No one from the police department contacted the hospital. No one told Okonkwo that his mother had been admitted. He sat alone in a holding cell on fabricated charges while his 70-year-old mother lay in a cardiac unit, terrified and wondering whether her son was even alive. But someone inside Kensington Police Department still had a conscience. Officer Tara Linden, shaken by everything she had witnessed, quietly stepped outside during a break and made a phone call to Naval Station Norfolk. She identified herself, explained what had happened, and provided Commander Okonkwo's name and service information. That single phone call set off a chain of events Dale has never imagined. The United States Navy does not abandon its own. Within 2 hours of Linden's call, Naval Station Norfolk confirmed Commander Okonkwo's identity, service history, security clearance, and active duty status. His commanding officer, Rear Admiral Franklin Dubois, was briefed at his home at 11:47 p.m. By midnight, the Admiral was on the phone with the Kensington Police Department. The call was recorded on the department's system. Dubois' voice was calm, but barely contained anger echoed through every word. Toa, but you are currently holding Commander Elijah Okonkwo, a decorated Navy SEAL with 19 years of service, a Silver Star and Purple Heart recipient, on charges that are clearly false. I am ordering you to release him immediately. If he is not released within the hour, I will contact the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, and the Judge Advocate General's office. The desk sergeant panicked. Calls rushed up the chain of command. Grace was pulled from his home at 1:00 a.m. and ordered to drop all charges at once. He argued, insisting the arrest was justified, but it no longer mattered. Everything had been recorded. Body cameras, security footage, holding cell surveillance, even the department's own phone lines. Okonkwo was released at 3:26 a.m. Still wearing his torn dress uniform and driven directly to his mother's hospital room by Officer Linden, who never spoke to Hicks again. By morning, the story had exploded. A Navy SEAL in dress whites arrested for having dinner with his mother. Restaurant guests uploaded their phone videos overnight. 40 million views in just 48 hours. Veterans organizations mobilized across the country. Congressional offices flooded Kensington Police Department with calls. The Pentagon released a formal statement calling the arrest deeply disturbing. Cable news played the footage nonstop. Then the White House called. The president was briefed during his morning intelligence summary. According to senior staff, he was furious. Within hours, the White House issued a statement that echoed across every major news outlet in the nation. What happened to Commander Okonkwo is a disgrace to the country he has spent his life defending. No American, especially one who has bled for this nation, should be brutalized because of the color of their skin. The president personally called Commander Okonkwo and his mother at Kensington Memorial Hospital. The conversation lasted 2 minutes. Lillian later said she cried the entire time. That same day, the Department of Justice opened a federal civil rights investigation. FBI agents arrived at Kensington Police Department at 6 a.m. the next morning with federal warrants. They seized all body camera servers, every security recording from Magnolia House, internal communications, personnel files, disciplinary records, and citizen complaint archives spanning 20 years. What investigators uncovered went far beyond one officer and one arrest. More than 200 civilian complaints had been filed against Kensington police officers over 2 decades. Most involved people of color. Complaints had been deliberately buried. Evidence had been destroyed. Body camera footage from disputed encounters had been labeled a corrupted or a lost at least 48 times. Internal affairs cases were closed without interviews, without reviewing evidence, and without holding anyone accountable. The pattern was undeniable. Winona. Kensington Police Department had operated for years as an organization that protected its officers at the expense of the community, allowing racial profiling through neglect, silence, and intentional cover-ups. The investigation expanded rapidly, from Dale Hendress to his supervisors, to internal affairs, to the entire chain of command. What began as one officer confronting one man at one restaurant revealed a system of discrimination reaching every level of the department. The Department of Justice filed sweeping federal charges. HRIS faced 14 counts, including conspiracy to violate civil rights under 18 U.S.C. Section 241, deprivation of rights under color of law under Section 242, falsifying police reports, tampering with evidence, and assault. 3 of his supervisors were charged as co-conspirators for enabling years of racial profiling, hiding complaints, and destroying body camera evidence. The trial became a national event. The courtroom was packed every day. Media filled the back rows. Veterans in uniform lined up before sunrise to secure seats. Civil rights advocates and military families watched closely. Seeing the case as a test of whether service to the country meant anything when your skin was the wrong color. The prosecution's evidence was overwhelming. Body camera footage from both Ricks and Linden played on courtroom screens in painful clarity. All 14 security camera angles from Magnolia House were shown at once on split screens. Holding cell footage showed Ricks mocking Okonkwo's uniform. The recorded phone call from Rear Admiral Dubois echoed through the courtroom. Then 67 former victims testified, one after another, each describing the same pattern, being targeted, humiliated, and charged with crimes that never happened. Siba. Commander Okonkwo testified in full dress uniform, his medals restored to his chest. He spoke about every deployment, every injury, the shrapnel in Fallujah, the firefight in Kandahar. Then he described being called a boy, having his face slammed into a table in front of his mother, and watching his medals ripped away and crushed under a police officer's boot. Lillian testified from a wheelchair, her voice shaking but steady, describing the moment she watched her son, who had survived 4 war zones, brutalized by police during a birthday dinner. The defense argued that H. Ricks had acted on a legitimate, anonymous tip. The prosecution played the footage. Sue? There was nothing to argue. The jury deliberated for less than 6 hours. When they returned, the courtroom went completely silent. The foreman, a retired firefighter, stood and read the verdict. Guilty on all 14 counts. The room exploded with sound. Veterans in the gallery rose to their feet in silent salute. Lillian collapsed into her son's arms, crying uncontrollably. Hendricks remained frozen in his chair, staring down at the table as the weight of what he had done finally settled in. At sentencing, Judge Raymond Cortez, a retired Marine who had served 2 tours in Vietnam, delivered words that would be quoted in law schools for generations. Commander Okonkwo swore an oath to defend this nation, and he honored that oath with his blood, his body, and 19 years of his life. Officer Hendricks swore an oath to protect and serve, and he violated that oath every single day he wore the badge. He brutalized a war hero. He terrorized an elderly woman on her birthday. He mocked a uniform that better men than him have died wearing. Music, and he did it all while his own camera recorded the evidence. This court will ensure that the cost of that betrayal is felt for the rest of his natural life. Hendricks was sentenced to 52 years in federal prison with no chance of parole. His 3 supervisors received prison terms ranging from 8 to 15 years for conspiracy and covering up misconduct. The civil lawsuit filed by Commander Okonkwo was settled for $34.07 million, the largest individual civil rights settlement in the history of Virginia. The Kensington Police Department was placed under a federal consent decree, with a Department of Justice appointed monitor overseeing every part of its operations. 14 officers were fired. Internal affairs was dismantled and rebuilt under civilian oversight. The department that had protected Dale Hendricks for 16 years was effectively torn down and rebuilt from the ground up. Commander Okonkwo used part of his settlement to create the Okonkwo Veterans Civil Rights Foundation, offering free legal help to service members and veterans facing discrimination. So, he testified before Congress, spoke at military academies, and became a national voice for accountability, sharing his experience wherever people were willing to listen. 3 months after the verdict, he received an invitation to the White House. The ceremony took place in the East Room, broadcast live by every major network. The president presented Commander Okonkwo with the Presidential Citizens Medal, the nation's second highest civilian honor. Lillian Okonkwo, fully recovered, sat in the front row wearing the same blue dress she had worn to Magnolia House, this time shedding tears of pride instead of fear. Magnolia House installed a permanent display near the window table where the arrest had happened. A framed photograph of Commander Okonkwo in full dress whites hung beside a plaque that read, "This table is dedicated to Commander Elijah Okonkwo, who served his country with honor and was failed by those sworn to protect him. All are welcome here." The combined body camera, security, and surveillance footage became required viewing at the FBI Academy, at military academies across the country, and in police training programs nationwide. A case study in how racial bias, institutional cover-ups, and unchecked authority destroy lives and entire departments. From his cell in a federal prison, Ricks never apologized. He never admitted wrongdoing. He never expressed regret for the medals he crushed under his boot, the mother he sent to the hospital, or the 67 lives he damaged during 16 years of unchecked power. In the end, it was his own body camera, the device he believed would protect him, that brought him down, capturing in unforgiving detail the moment a decorated war hero was brutalized for the color of his skin. While wearing the uniform of the country he nearly died defending. If you believe that those who serve this nation deserve dignity, that racial profiling has no place in law enforcement, and that body cameras must serve justice for everyone,